From brothels to casts of bodies to gladiators, all of this and more is coming up next. Today's video features the ancient city of Pompeii, located just south of the modern-day city of Naples, Italy. As you enter the ancient city of Pompeii, the first thing you notice is that it is surrounded by and filled with lush greenery and wild poppies. The next thing you notice is the sea of people.
Hello! So as of the time of filming this video, I am officially back in the United States. But I wanted to get on here and tell you guys a little bit more information about Pompeii in the absence of like hundreds of other tourists inside each shot. Pompeii is notoriously very, very hard to film in, and that's okay. It's just because Pompeii, they have like 2.5 million visitors or tourists that come to that site every year. So if you're thinking that you're gonna go to Pompeii and you're gonna have a private tour and it's gonna be you and a small group, it's not. We went in the heart of summer. We went in May of 24, and there were people on top of people on top of people. That being said, it was still awesome, and I still highly recommend that you visit one of the most famous archaeological sites in the world.
This is the Gladiator Courtyard that is surrounded by the barracks that were used to house the gladiators. The most famous gladiator that we have on record is named Marcus Attilius. He would have been housed in these very barracks. Marcus Attilius has a book written about him called The First Gladiator of Rome. The description of the book reads as follows. Marcus Attilius evolves as a gifted fighter and meets his first brutal encounter against Britannicus, a champion of Rome. Months later, under the watchful eye of his Lanista, Attius, he is pitted against the greatest gladiator of the empire by the name of Hilarius, an undefeated 12-wreath champion of Rome, and regarded as a contest that Marcus cannot win as a first-year gladiator. The famous contest is held in Pompeii, under the smoldering peak of Mount Vesuvius, as Marcus Attilius meets his ultimate challenge before a crowd of 20,000 spectators to gain the title of Primus Gladiatori. That very scene is still depicted to this day in a well-preserved fresco in Pompeii.
So 2 things that I wanted to touch on. First of all, when you are walking through Pompeii, you will see like in the roadways, they're cobblestone streets, and then in the road you will see like big, like larger rocks. And I'll show you a video of how this was used, because at the time they didn't have advanced sewage management techniques, right? So there was raw sewage in the streets. And when the streets would flood, you would be walking through human feces, human urine, human vomit, etc., right? So what you would do, and how Pompeii constructed the streets, is they would have like the lower level that the water would run through, and then they would have like larger stones that you can step. So kind of the original stepping stones that we think of today, but these were stepping stones that elevated you above the street level so that you did not have to step in raw sewage. And I'll show you a clip of that right here. And another part that I thought was really interesting from the tour was that the Pompeians were not necessarily eating at home. So they would have essentially restaurants set up where they would have these big pots of food that you could buy on your way home from work, on your way home from wherever. It wasn't like we're thinking of, or at least what came to mind for me is I would have thought that people would be making their own food and eating at home. But no, in fact, they had these big vats of like a stew or lentils or whatever that you could buy on the way home. And those big vats are actually nestled into the brick and the mortar that's there that makes the city. And they are still there to this day.
This was the Pompeian version of a Chipotle or a McDonald's on your way home from work. This is an original mosaic tile floor from the 9th century BC.
Another area that will be pointed out to you on your Ancient Ruins of Pompeii tour will be the red light district. Pompeii was known for its red light district. It is just slightly south of the city of Naples, so it was an ancient port city. You would have merchants and sailors that had been at sea for weeks, months, whatever, and they would come into port. They would be looking for love, they'd be looking for food, they'd be looking for lodging. So there was a very healthy and thriving red light district in Pompeii. And they actually do not allow you to use flash photography when you go through the ancient brothels because there are original ancient fresco paintings that still exist to this day. So they don't want you to use flash photography and degrade the paint. What I would recommend that you guys do is look it up. I'm going to include some of the footage of the original fresco paintings as they look today. And then there are restorations of these photos and exactly what they're depicting that you can look up online. So I would recommend that you guys do that because I'm not going to include those pictures on this video because I think YouTube wouldn't like it very much because they are depicting some, very explicit images. And the reason being is because it was an ancient port city. So you would have people coming into port that didn't necessarily speak the language. So ancient concept of Jason Derulo, right? International love, whatever. So what you could do is you would walk into one of these ancient brothels and then there would be pictures of services that were provided. And what you would do is you would pick a picture of what you wanted to pay for and what you wanted to do. And so that's why those pictures were there. So it's kind of like when you go into a Chinese restaurant and they have like the pictures of like the General Tso's chicken or the honey chicken or fried rice or whatever, and you select that that's what you want. That's how it worked in the ancient city of Pompeii in the red light district, you guys. So I'm going to include some footage of this red light district. If you're interested to know more of, a restored version of these images, you can look it up online, just like Pompeii red light district, because it is very interesting to see how different ancient cultures were, and that was an acceptable thing. That was, just something that they would do, and you would just pick what you wanted and that's what you would get. So Overall, it was a really cool thing to see, and the fact that you can walk in now all of these years later and you can look at these original paintings and they're still at least somewhat intact was the most amazing thing to me. You are seeing the original paint that artist actually put work in to put that to the wall and paint that painting on the wall, and it still exists to this day, and it survived the volcano.
Lastly, we visited the plaster casts of human victims of this tragedy. These casts were created by pouring liquid plaster into the voids where bodies had decomposed. Once the plaster had hardened, they would remove the soil and ash from around the cast, revealing the human form that remained. In a poetic way, nature has taken this site back over. What was once a tragic sight of loss of life is now littered with poppies and the cheerful sounds of birds chirping in the distance. Thank you for watching this video, and let me know in the comments where you'd like to see me go next.